Whenever you're ready.
5.
Oh yes, yeah, I forgot about the numbers.
It's okay.
Just start
okay.
again. You start again. With the 5.
5,
4,
3,
2.
1.
Yes.
Yes. It's all good. Hello and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a podcast where we read about some Dungeons and Dragons and discuss how we might include it in our role-playing campaigns. With me as ever, the first time we're recording in 2021, is Hamilton. Hi Hamilton, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. Off screen, we've both been sick.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ill, but I'm fine.
Yeah, but we're
fine.
I think just in general, like the holiday season, like you're like, oh, well, I'm busy, but I'm not doing anything. I'm just sat here, but I have to be present, but I can't play games or I can't do editing and stuff like that. And that's what it's been. And then as a result, I've just got tired. But yeah, good holiday for you though, Hamilton?
It was nice. And with a little one, Christmas is so much more exciting than it has been during your 20s when it's just getting socks and jumpers. You know, it's actually more interesting. So yeah, it was lovely.
Did you manage to wear pajamas then for most of Christmas? Because we talked about Christmas. Oh no.
No. As I said, that's something that went away when I was in my 20s. So.
But do you know? But you've got a little one. Surely with the little one, you'd be like, well, you know, if the little one wants to be in pajamas, then I guess
pajamas. But no, actually, because she had to get dressed in her Christmas outfit. Right, my wife's got a Christmas outfit for her, so she has to put that on. So it's very sweet. Very sweet.
Well, Hamilton, what are we talking about today? What is our topic of choice?
Our topic of choice today is the clickbaitiest one we've ever done.
Yeah, damn straight it is.
How to start running D&D. We just thought, I think it was just, it came to me as a sort of idea that actually it's a topic that has been, I'm not going to lie, other people have looked at it, but I thought,
of course,
I've been thinking about it quite a lot because I'm getting back into doing actual plays a bit, and therefore re-interesting myself in all of the things that go with that, and therefore it was on my mind, and I think that it's constantly an ever-changing area, and some things I'm talking to people, and they're like, I don't know about that. So I thought maybe this is a chance to offer some things that people maybe everyone might know all these things, but it's here, and I think it could be interesting.
You know, and I agree, actually. It was interesting because I asked some people, I asked our Discord as well what they thought, and we got some really interesting answers back. I actually was quite, not stunned, but I was like, oh, I hadn't considered it that way. Yeah. So thank you, everyone in the Discord, for dealing with my questions going, but what about this? Because I think it is a genuinely interesting subject, because I saw on Twitter very recently, like Satine Phoenix, the Satine Phoenix, asked, have people actually read the DM's guide? And loads of people came back and said no. And she was very confused about it, but surely you need that for when you're running your own campaign. So I actually was very interesting reading through the comments of that, because some people haven't even touched it. They have it, but they just don't look at it, and all those sort of things. So really, I'm interested to see what we can talk about. And people, if you're watching this or you're listening to it later, do send us what you think could actually be good for running your campaign. So if you're a first-time DM, because I think that's what we're sort of focusing on. Is like if you're getting into Dungeons and Dragons, you know, it is a new year. Somebody's gone, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons, and of course, out of your friends group, you're the one that has to DM because nobody else is willing to do it. So, like, what do you need? So, I guess, Hamilton, what would be your number one thing you would suggest to either yourself, who's going back into DMing, or a new DM, that you should, like, this is important for you to run a game of Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, I was going to go to the thing that they said in Discord. I wanted to just go back on that
Let's
before
do
I
it.
say
Yeah.
it, which was, a lot of people said nothing.
Yes.
Pretty much. Which I thought was really interesting, and I think because there is so much out there on the internet, you just Google any rule, anything like that, then you don't need it. You know, you don't technically need to buy any of the books we were talking in particular, because there's the wikis, there's everything like that for all the lore and all that stuff. So I just wanted to point. I think there is a point that you could try and get away with making D&D based off. Well, I think something you wanted to talk about particular was the basic rules. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So it was very interesting when people saying like, I have the book, but just because, which blew my mind slightly. But then again, as I said to you just off camera, when I started DMing, I also didn't read the Dungeon Master's Guide. I just knew the rules from the basic rules supplement. So when we're talking about this, Wizards of the Coast had released under the Open Gaming license the basic rules. So it's a 180-page PDF that you can get on their website. I'm sure if you just Google...
You can see it now in front of us.
You can see it. Ooh, very exciting. You can also get it if you've got a D&D Beyond account. It is free on there as well. And it's just basically the general sort of, here are the rules that most likely to come up. Here are some basic races. Here are, all the things that you need to start a game. You don't have any of these fancy sort of extra classes or any sort of, it's all very simplified doing it. I do think it's kind of important to read or have a skim through that just so you know, because again, as you said, we can get bits and pieces about, like, say, watching a stream, like watching Critical Role, watching High Rollers. You'd be like, oh, this is how the game is doing, but you might want to do it in a different way, and you may be like, wait, so what is it to hit? I don't understand, where's this stat come from, etc. Well, the basic rules has it all there, and it is free under the Open Gaming license. So I highly recommend, if you are a new DM or you want to check something, always have this somewhere as a PDF on your computer or have it on your phone, just to look at. I do think that is vital, just to have a look at that if you need to question it, rather than Google search, how does grappling work? It's like, oh no!
Yeah.
So many rules.
Because when I started D&Ding as well, I bought the starter kit, which I not 100% I would recommend, actually, personally, because I think it's quite a bit of cash for not exactly what I was looking for. It might be for someone. So what you get in that is the basic rules, as I think there's a smaller document than 180 pages.
Yep.
But you get a very simple rules. You get some pre-gen characters, a set of dice. So you get the classic 20, 10, 12, 8, 6, 4, and that's it. Yeah, you don't even get. I don't think you get 100. I don't remember getting 100. I think that's the only one I have only got one D10 in. I think, and it's the horrible purple with the white dice, the classic dice, which I don't think are pretty enough in this day and age, because dice can be prettier. But I thought that as I said, I thought I got it, and I thought, actually, this isn't telling me enough of the information. This thing online actually gives you a lot more basis and background to actually how the game plays in more detail and stuff like that. But yeah, so as the only thing I wouldn't recommend, I think if you were going to go for that, buy yourself either Player's Handbook.
Yes, not...
Basically,
yes.
I'd say. But it's not... I wouldn't say it's meaty enough. But yes, this is a great resource, and I've actually never read it. I've never read the standard rules, this book, this that you recommended here. But and maybe it'd be a bit too late to go back now. But...
No, I think you always find something new, and as we've discovered throughout DM's book club, is that we've gone in and gone, oh, I didn't know these things were here, just because we've forced ourselves to go looking back at it. But I think what's interesting about the starter set, for example, because obviously there's the new starter set that's come out with rules for the sidekicks and stuff like that, so if you're just playing one DM, one player, I think what's good about it is that if you think of it not necessarily as this is D&D, I would say that it's an experience in the sense of it's a board game, right? It's just like, this is for us to sit down and do stuff, whereas I always think D&D is more of a, well, we're going to get here regularly and build some stuff like that. If you were like, we're going to play this through as almost like an escape room box, that sort of thing. You go, we play it through, we enjoy it for what it is. That could work, and it could work with families. It could work with people who aren't very confident with RPGs in general. But if you want to, if you're like, I want to DM, but I want to do it my way with my world. I'm not too fussed about pre-written modules. Then absolutely, I think basic rules. But also, as you said, the Player's Handbook. That's the first book that came out. I think most of your questions are answered by it. Really, I think the only thing I would say, maybe if you wanted to make like magic items or anything like that, that is in the DM's guide. But even then, you could just make this stuff up. But I think a good understanding and something to give to your players as well, as I was sort of saying to you before, if you were helping other people make a character and in person, I would say, and you're like, oh, if you want to look up, here's the book to have a look at it and be inspired by like, oh, actually, I want to play a monk. What do you think about that? And just be able to look through, rather than just go, here's a PDF. I don't know about you, Hamilton. Well, you're probably better at this than I. When I open a PDF and it's like 400 pages, I'm like, ugh. Whereas a book, I'm easily able to go through.
Where my Player's Handbook is. I have no idea where it is because it's been
don't need it.
I don't even need it. It's just somewhere. I've got one. I've got one in physical
it's somewhere.
format. I don't get. See, I'm not a physical book buyer that much because I've already got. If I kept buying books, I would run out of shelves. So it's not a problem. It's like a problem for me anyway. And so But the Player's Handbook is the one I bought, and I've got it here on D&D Beyond as well. But
Yeah.
when we were playing in person, it was the book that the DM really had with him all the time. We all had our own version as well, and it was just a great little book that I'd have the pages like tabbed with little tabs for what's relevant to my character, and but it gives you enough. As you said, it's not just about. It gives you stuff about the personality and the classes and the races, but it also tells you all about the equipment you pretty much need. So all values and stuff that you need as a DM are pretty much in there as well. Tells you about adventuring, spellcasting, combat, and all that sort of stuff. I think what you gain in the DM's the Dungeon Master's Guide really is more like how to make a campaign, how to homebrew everything. Which, if you're starting out in D&D and that's where you want to go, it's a great resource for it. But I would just say, if you're starting out in D&D and you're not, and you want to test the waters, I'd get a pre-done adventure. I'm not going to say there is a definite adventure you have to get, because I think you could, and it doesn't have to be from Wizards of the Coast even. The DM's Guild or Drive Through RPG or whichever variant of that you want to use, or Kobold Press or anything like that, go to them. And they are a great resource where you can just, and all of them, to buy a pre-gen game, and that will give you all the monsters you need as well, generally. Like, you don't need any extras.
No, I agree. I think going back to that, actually, like pre-written adventures, I mean, I'm a massive fan of them as well. But if you're like, I don't want to get like, I know, the famous Curse of Strahd or Wild Beyond the Witch, like, because obviously those are big things, and you feel like, I'm not sure if this is going to work for a, one-off, like, 'cause that's the thing, you don't want to invest so much, and then your players go, actually, I don't want to play this, or anything like that, because we've all had that. One thing I would suggest, if you wanted a pre-written adventure, but you weren't sure what to go, on DM's Guild, they have Adventure League modules, so these are the modules that they run in the game stores and stuff like that. Recently, they've had loads of ones for, Feywild stuff, which I think we briefly talked about it before, the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which are perfectly crafted for like 2 or 3 hours, but for people who are just new to running, being a DM and stuff like that. So I'd recommend looking at those up. And I think those are pay what you want, or at least they're like $5 or something like that. And that's nothing for, like, again, a game in a box, an evening, playing it through, trying these things out, and it being... not having to memorize rules or not having to learn so much stuff. Like, that's always been my thing. It's when you see it doesn't happen very often on streams now. I think people get better at it. But I always think there's nothing worse than going, I need to check the rule, and then spending 3 or 4 minutes doing it. Certainly watching people on stream, that's very boring. But if you're a player as well, if you're not doing anything, if it's not your turn, you switch off a little bit. And I think as a DM, there's always that, but I want to make sure everyone's enjoying it and engaging yourself. I think go for it.
Well, with that then, is there an adventure that you would recommend? Of the published adventures, let's like simplify it then, or if you've got a particular one. But if we were going to say of the published adventures, you said like you're starting in D&D. What is the adventure you would say like this is the one? This is the adventure that's a good starter. Like, is it the classic, just the Lost Mines of Pendalva or whatever it is, or is it something else?
Phandalin, yeah.
Phandelver. Is it? Oh, is it Phandalin? Okay.
Phandelver, but I think it's Phandalin. It doesn't matter. We always get the pronunciations wrong anyway. Interesting. So that was the first adventure I played in,
right? Okay.
And again, I think it's as a generic. You go on your way. Oh, but you're ambushed, and there's a cave and stuff. It hits all those story beats. So again, if you're going through the motions, that's really good. What I would actually recommend is actually the one shot I sent to you. There's a big anthology called the Uncaged Anthology, which deals with monsters. It's all adventures around certain monsters, which are usually feminine or female presenting, but a bit of a twist on the way. And certainly the first volume of that, or first couple of volumes of that even, they have adventures all the way up to level 20, but the first couple of that, there's like the Night Watch, which involves sirens and harpies and all that sort of thing. The one I quite liked was... the one that was inspired by Little Mermaid. It was essentially based in Dragon Heist. Not Dragon Heist, Waterdeep. Yeah. And someone comes and said, I need you to find this woman. I think she's a mermaid and all that sort of. And it's, again, a bit of urban adventure, a bit of skullduggery, trying to find stuff, boss at the end, that sort of thing. Those ones, I think, just because they're a little bit more interesting and they involve all that sort of thing. There's at least one encounter, a big, there's there'll be a little map as well, a bit of role play. So anything like that, simple... couple pages
recommend it as well,
done.
Actually, I've got them up. I've got the thing up here now showing it. It's just that you sent me to use
the Night Watch
one as an idea. So I went and fell in love with them, and I'm going to purchase now. I've got some Christmas bonus money. Going to go and buy the whole anthology because it's really good. They've got a new one, which the new cover is so cool.
Is it like the Goddesses one?
Yeah, with the sort of gold and...
I will say the artwork is incredible. And there's, I think, again, apologies, I can't remember which volume it is. I think it might be the one. There's one that just gives a description of like a night hag that you could just put in as an NPC, which could do story hooks, stuff like that. Again, great for ideas, and just a really interesting book to read through as well. 100%. So if you're not too sure about Wizard of the Coast, like, I don't know, I'd recommend this book, because again, what's good about this is that these stories, I think you can put into any RPG system. If you're like, we're going to play this through, but we're going to use, I don't know, Call of Cthulhu rules or anything like that. I think they get the story, change it, it's as an inspiration. So I definitely Uncaged, I think, would be my recommendation if you were going to do that.
Well, yeah, because I used it as our session 0 for Dragon's Duel, and it was really that Night Watch one. It worked so well, and it literally did exactly as you said. It did the three pillars of D&D, which I'm going to change to a certain extent. I know they are I was seeing on that basic rules of it's exploration, social interaction, and combat. And I'd say that it's sort of like it did. I say exploration can also be switched with investigation, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Or intrigue, because I think that maybe that is what they mean by the word exploration. But I think a lot of people see exploration as like adventuring in the wild in like Lord of the Rings, but in an urban adventure, it's more like investigation. So that's what it had. It had the sort of intrigue. You were trying to figure out story, so you had that idea. So mystery had really good little social interactions and had some really good like characterizations for people and gave them their own particularness. And like backstories to like the key characters. Like one of them had sort of, instead of an arm, an actual mage arm always as their hand, which I thought was like a really great little like, why did that happen? And adds a little bit of flavour into that. And then it had combat, but actually the amount of combat we did was very minor. Actually, it was more. It wasn't the combat that was in the book as well, which was great. I think it was a good example of a good campaign and story. Was that there was an option for a battle, like a way you could do it, but ours turned out in such a different way than the way the book. So I totally recommend it as a.
I'm so glad. I think my friend Chloe wrote that one. That's why I do push it on people to read. But I think it's actually, because I've played it myself, and it is a genuinely like a little sort of again, not to spoil it at all per se, but it's just like, something's not right here, but you're not entirely sure what. And I think if you're
we should come back and do these. As a we'll do this as an extra whole, maybe one of the anthologies or something like that. Just talk about.
I agree. Well, we could do the new one when that comes out.
Let's do that. Yes, there we go.
Done. There you go. So we're not, because otherwise I'll just be like, just read them all. They're really good. But so I think so a good adventure like that, or like an Adventure League one again, because they also have, what's good about DM's Guild as well is that they'll have reviews of stuff as well. I mean, take it with a pinch of salt, but they usually have a really good description of what the adventure is, how long it is, and then usually the reviews say, actually, this took us a bit longer, or this was really enjoyable, blah, 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 blah. So do take into account those if you've got time. But DM's Guild is always a good one if you're not keen on buying a full 200, 300 page module from
99 or 20 quid, even depending on how much it is, but they're also a bit more financially accessible, which is also a thing to be aware of, because that's why online is better, because you can save some pennies. If you want to buy a physical book, it's 40 quid. So that's why DM's Guild is actually quite a good resource.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then with that though, if you so this is like DMing. So I would say if you're going to make a character, I would use D&D Beyond.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that, absolutely.
Because I'm lazy.
But for the same thing. No, but I think, and this is, again, if you're online, it is very easy, again, because it's free to create an account. You can have up to 6 character slots, and obviously you get the basic rules for free, so you can make a very basic, straightforward first-level character using certain things. If you want to have a more customizable one, then, again, it's that sort of thing where you'd have to talk to your DM and work out from there. But again, like we did a couple of episodes ago, I created, we did our first character creation with my mum, who'd never done it before. We did it all on D&D Beyond because it was just easy. And then when she was asking, like, can I do this instead? We're like, okay, we'll customize it a little bit. Which again, same thing, you do it with pen and pencil, but a little bit more just working out the twigs there. But it was just straightforward. So now her character sheet could work. She could just go into any campaign stuff. She already has it there. She doesn't have to rewrite it out. She doesn't have to double check anything. It's all there. So yeah, I think.
And what I love about it as well is that, like, not wanting to make this too much an advert for the people that sponsor the show for my
of course
stream, but obviously I would love to do that as well because it is amazing. But the thing is, you know, whatever book you buy and own on D&D Beyond, which is what's great about it, is it automatically links into your character building. So if you've got any extra races, classes, whatever like that, then obviously it sticks with that, and people don't know that, but it does do that. And then also, if you do pay the subscription, which I do pay for, the additional like £5 a month or something like that, it means that everyone in your party, up to 6 parties, can share all of the books that you have as well, which is really useful because you've bought the book. You know that if you bought the book as a DM at home, you'd be like, well, here's the class.
Passing it out.
So they allow you to do that so that your players can also have all the fantastic cool stuff that you've got. And you can buy them individually as well. Like if you just want to buy that class or that race, it allows you to do that as well, which does make it, again, more financially accessible, which I think is I think which is always important in TTRPGs because it can become quite a
expensive hobby.
I mean, it's not like there's other hobbies which are definitely more expensive, you know, like classic car ownership. I'm joking, but like, but even in the TTRPG space, like I don't know, Warhammer, for example, which can become quite an expensive thing straight off the bat, and a lot more. You can slowly but surely start buying lots of dice and lots of books and lots of stuff, and so
it's interesting you talk about dice. So this is the thing for me, like again online there are loads of free dice rollers. Obviously D&D Beyond, it's macros already set up, so you can just do that. But one thing I always did as a DM, and it's just again financially, you know, maybe not for you, but what I always do is that when I was going to do a one shot and there was some new player who had never played before, was really excited, I'd actually go out and buy their own set of dice so that they could roll with their own dice. And I'll be like, well, this is your character sheet, here's your dice. So now you can come back, or you can go play it. Because I think it's always something, like you said, with the starter kit, it comes with its own set of dice, but it's only one set and people have to use it. And so, and I always feel like, you know, if you don't want to keep borrowing someone else's, if you got it all there, that's really nice. So that's something I always do in person. Like it's obviously online is a little bit different now, but like I always went and bought their own set of dice. And I'm like, this is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. You can go play different characters with it, or you can give it to somebody else. But I think it's just because it's something magical about having your own set of things. But it is tactile, but it's also it's a satisfaction of like using the dice and feeling like you're playing a game a little bit more. It gives you that sort of interface with it, which is why I like to use physical dice as much as possible, even when I'm online. Agreed.
It's only when I need to roll like 8d8 that I'm like, bugger that, I'll just
I'll
do
all
it
on.
Internet. But if it's like I want to roll that d20, I'm rolling it with a d20 because Also, I don't trust the machines. I don't trust them. So,
Agreed.
So yeah, I think that I think that's they're great resources. And I think the other thing just to note on dice rolling as well, like we'll come probably to it later, but there are ways that you can interface your D&D Beyond to other systems, which is always good as well. So there's that benefit, which we'll come on to with dice rolling. But
and just to jump back, sorry, I just remember this. So again, some people would say, well, what is there any point in getting the monster manual as well? And I think this is quite interesting because again, you can search for them, stuff like that. I think it's the monster manual itself has got a really good idea if you want to do your dragons, stuff like that. It's all got stuff for it. But there are monsters and enemies in the back of the player's handbook, as you were suggesting. So you have it all in there. But I would say there are other homebrew stuff out there. Again, it's maybe spending a bit more money than you want to, but there's the Tome of Beasts by Wolfgang Bauer or something like that, and creature codexes and stuff like that. Massive stuff, but they're all monsters that can be put into any system. So if you were going to do Pathfinder or any sort of fantasy thing, it's there. It has all the general stats, and you just do it. So if you wanted to have some different inspiration, I'd actually recommend those. The sort of Tome of Beasts, I think, is that series, and Creature Codexes by that one. So that was the only thing I was going to say. It's something a bit different than the monster manual if you were looking for something different.
And that's actually something else I wanted to add in as well for all of this, and even just DM's Guild, not even on DM's Guild and all that stuff. There are people making stuff all the darn time on the time. So the other thing, I think, if you're going to start running D&D, and I think I said this actually when I was talking to Derek the other day, was get yourself on the community, however that is. I think Reddit, Twitter. I mean, I hear Facebook is a dangerous place to touch, but I never go there anymore. I never really go there. It feels like the Wild West, but it might be fine. But I think and get involved in there, and you'll find lots of resources there anyway. But if you just search, there's people making like so many different classes, subclasses, and stuff like that, and just chucking them out there, which are great fun. And some are stupid, some are actually highly intelligent, really. And the stupid ones are sometimes highly intelligent as well. I don't mean it like that, but like as in someone's made all the Transformers as a class or something like that. But some of them are just like really, really great ones out there that you just think that you can just get, and monsters and statting them up and all this sort of stuff. So just worth just doing all that sort of stuff in addition.
So that's all the sort of like, here's some rules, here's some dice, here's some ideas to get started.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Hamilton.
Yes.
How does one note or make notes when DMing?
How notes?
how does one note what's going on?
I don't know why. I am the worst person for this question because.
Yes.
I am just classic. I mean, actually, I'm classic in the most modern technical way. Is before I bought a new iPad, it was all pen and paper, and I used my iCloud notes, and I use Google Docs a bit as well. But generally, I'm a pen and paper person because that's just how I think.
Yeah.
I think it just comes from architecture as well. I'm using pens and paper quite a lot, and I'm sort of a stickler for maintaining that practice, even though my handwriting's terrible. But now I've got an iPad. I do it on my iPad. I make notes with a pen. Yeah. So it's slightly modern, but it's not that modern. And I find that just for me, it's because I want to write something and then I want to go, and add that in here. And then my brain kind of works that way. And then if I use Procreate, which I do, I can sort of drag something and move it over there, make it bigger. And then I can think, and I can still edit it a bit. And I can draw a little map in the corner when I've got a little idea for a map. And I just find that really simple. And also the way I run games is just like, I want to get vague ideas and some key characters, but I want it to be a bit free flow to a certain extent. So that's how it works for me. But there are loads of other systems out there. I mean, is there one what do you use? What's your main one?
Well, again, it's pretty much the same as you. I think there's different ways to look at it. If you are going to purely world build and purely do stuff, then I can imagine your notes being a little bit more organised, just the way you do it. Yes. For me, when I'm running a session or prepping for a session, I will literally copy and paste quite a bit of the text from D&D Beyond, put it into a Google Doc, and then make notes on that and edit it down. Yeah. And then when I've done something, I will strike it out, or I'll be like, highlight in blue, they haven't found this, or something like that. Just, again, something visual. But even then, before a game, if I know, if it's even not as detailed as that, if it's a one-shot I'm running, I will write down the story beats, like you said, in the pens. Like, I just go over it over and over again. Like, they need to hit this, this, and this. So there's two very different ways of doing it. And pen and paper or Google Doc or any of those things. For our game on Mondays, with Xerios, Ryan wrote everything out world-wise in a big book, like just like a general sort of big notebook, and then moved it all on, as it's going on, onto OneNote, which he could organise as well. All that sort of thing.
Good. Yeah. OneNote's actually quite good. I use that for work a bit. I can see that being actually quite good for a D&D session. Yeah,
so if your place of employment does have 360 Office or anything like that, absolutely try out OneNote for that sort of thing. The other ones I got down was sort of Notion. Again, this sort of free, a bit similar to Procreate. Again, anything that you could just put up and then share with other people. So I think it was Tib in our DM's Book Club Discord. They said they did this and they share it with their players because the players forget what's going on. But it's like, here's the main objectives, and then cross out when they've done them, which I think is pretty useful as well. The one I wanted to quickly talk about, though, again, saying this as someone who has no experience with it, as I talked to a few people about World Anvil, which has been sort of put around as like one of the places to make your notes and organise it. Yeah. And I will say this, I don't have any experience of it myself. From the outset of it, the person I spoke to about it, they said that it is there's a lot to it. Like all these software programs we're going to probably talk about, you need to sit down and have the time to go through it and learn the stuff. It's not something you can do quick. If you're making quick notes or you quick world building, you take the time to look at it. What they said a big plus about World Anvil is that it has a lot of creative prompts to it. So if you were starting to put out, their example was they were starting to put out their pantheon of religions, they got prompts like, well, what's the main saying of this religion? What's the iconography? All that sort of thing. Stuff that you might not think about per se, but anything like that I always think is really useful if you have the time to sit down and world build. You're like, ooh, I could write something out there. So for that, I hear World Anvil is very good. So I just thought I'd put that out there. Is that if you're want to have some creative prompts that are a little bit different, maybe World Anvil will be there, and then from there you can organise your notes as well. But that is an option for that.
What I would say about World Anvil, and I think it's worth noting, because when it first came out, I had in my mind that it was going to offer you a lot. But actually, it is a wiki builder. At the back end of it, really, it is just a wiki builder with some really great tools. So I've just scrolled down through it whilst you were talking, so people can see some of them. But it doesn't make maps. It doesn't make anything.
It's a place to put things.
It's literally an organisational system. So and it's a very powerful one like that. And I do love the sort of like, you make little points on the map and stuff like this, and you click on them, and then it will give you the city, and it will give you stuff like information on it. Then it will give you things that you've made, but you've got to put all of that information in, which is great. And I think. And if you're doing that homebrew campaign, really good system, really good organisation tool, and all those additional tools, like, but I'm just looking at it going like, when am I going to have the time to make family trees and bloodlines, make organisation charts?
I mean, that's, exactly. It sounds cool, but you need the time to do it.
Diplomacy webs, and make my own roll take. I mean, like, great, but whoa.
Again, as a new DM, probably not for you. And I completely agree. I think it's that sort of thing is that if you take the time to learn these things, like, that sounds so cool, like family trees and bloodlines. And the other thing I'd say, obviously, World Anvil is not just for D&D, it could be for any RPG at all. So again, these little things are just quite interesting. So it is worth talking about, but I completely agree. And I'm sure as we're going to quickly talk about Roll20, same sort of thing, like sitting down, going through their very long tutorial nearly killed me, because there was so much to it. Like, and it once I can imagine as a DM, if you did all the things, you learned all the stuff out, it would be a really engaging way to play. And you, again, using Roll20, again, not just for D&D, I've played games of like Alice is Missing on there, and had maps and all that dynamic lighting. But again, there's a lot, and I think this is the one thing I did want to say, with more online play with the DM also becomes tech help. And I feel like if you're a storyteller and you're doing all these things, you can't be tech help as well. You need to have somebody else there who's 100%. Just like, I'm going to... Certainly with Roll20, you have stuff like, oh, the macros aren't working, or the character sheet's not working.
It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. It's too... And it becomes too much. And so...
Yes.
I think, I've got Roll20 up here. Again, it's another organisational strategy. And I hate to say it about Roll20, it is way too shonky. It is just not... Like, it is not a good system. Its back end is actually really bad, and therefore using
it's not user friendly at all.
It's so not user friendly. It's not clear, and I think there are better ones out there. I think there are better this level of quality out there. I think Dungeon Fog seems to be a big one that people are really going on about at the moment. The one that I think both you and I really love.
I knew this was coming.
A VTT is, and it's just like, there is nothing more simple. And it just does exactly what it says in the tin. And it's getting better and better by the day. So you know, roll dice in it is Owlbear Rodeo. Yeah. Here it is. So beautiful, easy to use. Like, you just go, want to start a game? Yeah, I'll start a game. All right, I'll do that. I create a password or not. That's fine. Just start that. Okay. All right.
Upload a map.
So I could just... I'm just going to use one of their base ones. But
use the free one,
I'll use the free one now. So you get a map. There's a square. There's those grids. It's done. If you just literally up the map, you tell how many grid sizes it is. It's very simple. And then you just drag some tokens over, and then you can just go, there we are, they're there. That's
and
the
you can add. You can always upload. Again, I know Roll20 does this, but you can easily upload tokens. You can
upload tokens really well. You can draw on the map. I want to do some weird drawings. I don't know why. I want to measure the distance. Oh, that's 20 feet. That's easy. I want to create a fog of war. I can even do that by just literally just doing this. This is all fog. It's done. Done.
Yeah, so if you had like a pre-gen map from, say, if Wizard of Coast, like say the Death House, something like that, which is something I did, have it all up there, have it all hidden, and then reveal it. It was just, for me, it took me maybe 20 minutes of setup in Owlbear just to make sure everything was right, and be like, okay, here's the enemies that are hidden, and I know you could do the exact same thing with Roll20. I've done it with Roll20.
Exactly.
It took me at least 3 times longer to do that.
Exactly.
So if you are a DM who has a map and you're like, I want to show them, but I'm not sure, do have a play around with Owlbear Rodeo, because it is, I genuinely think it is one of the most simplistic, easy to use, and player friendly as well. Like you can have other players come into it and move their own tokens around and all 100%. That sort of thing.
I know, and they just load in. As I said, you've got a dice roller in there now.
Yes,
which I've just started using, and I'm just showing that now. It's a bit wonky because my computer's got a lot open at the moment, but it does work a little better than I'm showing it now. And as I said, yeah, uploading tokens, and it does keep information if you save a game and you log in, and it's really easy to send invites. And
you can what I did was that you can save it and then export that data as some sort of file.
Yes.
Month later, upload it again, and it's all set there. Like,
it's
and
really,
which
and
it's
people,
so
when
useful.
and you're someone as well who does What Am I Rolling, which has got guest people on. I do Dragon's Duel, which has a lot of guest people on, so which aren't like regular players for me, and so I just go, you ask people, you even people at the beginning said, so do you know Roll20? I don't know Roll20. Half people don't know Roll20, so you're like,
No.
well, that's out of the draw.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah,
But if I say Owlbear Radio and I put this in front of someone, they're like, oh, so it's just a video game, so I just literally just pick that and move it. Oh, okay, that's easy. I just want to move it there, and it's so simple.
It's done. Yeah. So that's us fully endorsing Owlbear Radio. And they have some really sweet how-to videos as well. I would recommend.
They really do actually, yeah. And I like the artwork for them as well.
Okay, we like them. Okay, we get it. We get it. Why don't you marry it,
Well, with that, the
etc.
only thing that you need then for all of these is a map making ability to get.
Oh, look at that segue!
So
Whoa,
segue.
smooth.
Whoa.
All right, what have you got then, map?
Well, I'm gonna give two resources. Actually, I've thought of another one, but the one I'm gonna give off the bat is Incarnate or Incarnate, however you pronounce it. I think it's just 90% of the people that are making maps out there on the internet are using this system, I think. Well, it feels like, because it's a really powerful. I've made some maps in it. I've had a lot of fun with it. You have to be willing to take the time to do that. Again, it's just this is the thing with DMing and starting D&D is managing your time however effectively you want to. So I'm going to talk about a really good resource to get a load of maps in a minute.
Perfect.
But this is a good place if you want to start making your maps. World maps, I think, take a lot less time than adventure maps because it's just mucking about making worlds, and you can randomly spin them as well, and they can make those little, you can pre-generate some shapes if you want, or you can really get involved in it, and the assets that they have in it are really good. And it has a free service which has got quite a good amount of non-HD, basically. I'd say about 120. I can't remember the number. Last time I looked, it was about 120 assets.
So many.
Which is a lot.
That's a lot.
But when it comes to the city ones and town ones, they're really good. Like there's some. If I go, I'm going to just go to their map gallery very quickly. But you can see a quick look at like the beautiful style. There's such beautiful stylings, like right off the bat. You just know it's going to look good. You don't have to do too much to make it look good. But then, and the isometric ones are really nice and make it feel like a video game in a way, and really give character to your cities. They do start to look the same after a while, I must admit.
Of course.
But you can buy map packs, and you can buy more things and asset packs. You can upload assets if you want, so there's people making them. But I think it's a really great resource. I think if you are a talented Photoshopper or CAD, you use CAD, so you are some sort of architect or something, whoever those weird people are, then you could also use that system as well. I think that's a good one. But Incarnate is great just if you've not used any sort of graphical systems and want preset generators. So where were we?
So I believe we were talking about how much we both love Owlbear Radio as a way to share a map, certainly a 2D like top side down map. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but yes, because I've used it in my Curse of Strahd campaigns. I'm sure you've used it for other things. It's just out of all the virtual tabletop systems I come to, it is the easiest one to just get up and go, and it has all these cool little extras like I think you mentioned like the dice roller. That's quite new, and the little custom little things that obviously players can use as well, but you can update your own, and it just looks simple and it's really straightforward for DMs and players to use. So I am like 100% go for Owlbear.
So much easier than any, and I think it's just as simple as that. And I think if you want to get into the whole Roll20, you can, but the thing that we could say on top of like what Roll20 supposedly gives you, but what makes it more complicated is you can have video chat and voice chat, but no one uses it because it's shonky. It does add musical effects, but again, it's sort of shonky, and also the music can sometimes be very repetitive, which can get a little bit drony after a while. So, like a lot of people, before I even started streaming, I used Discord, which is which everyone was like, okay, so you use Roll20, but we use Discord for chat, and you're like, okay, fine. So that's what we set up. And what good about Discord is that it also gives you like group. Oh,
it gives you groups, and it gives you you can organizational system that can be beneficial to like having a game of D&D. I'm not just talking from a streaming point of view. I'm just talking about gives you good quality sound and good quality video off the bat, but you can also be rolling dice in there, so you can get bots that do the dice rolls for you that connect to your D&D Beyond account and to your character sheet. You can do. You can even make initiative trackers in there if you really want to. I've used they have a combat system that does initiative trackers, and everyone just says I join, and they all join the initiative, and it then rolls it out for you, and it tells you who turn it is. So it's all very like integrated, but also. You can have different chats for like I'm going to whisper to like I'm just talking from because we're in this like. If you're going to go and play games, it's easy. You just go down the pub if there's no Pando going on. But when there's a Pando going on, this is a beneficial system. Or if you want to play internationally. And being able to just drop into a little private video chat, like whisper chat with each of your players, or being able to mute other people, and then play music. You can play music through it, or you can share music through things. So I really recommend Discord. If you don't know about Discord, there's loads. I'm not going to give you a tutorial, but there's loads of good tutorials, and it is great.
Yes.
And you can just be back and forth with your backstories, and you could be sending all your, like little, like we're doing for Dragon's Duel, just like I've got a little separate talk with each of the characters.
Yes.
And I'm just in there just going like, hey, what about this with your backstory? I just saw this, or just chucking them a bit of information, and them chucking me something back, and it's really useful. So, and it's all stored there.
That's exactly what I was going to point out, because I know in Roll20 you do have it, but you have to scroll up loads of ways. And you do the same on Discord as well. I just think it's a lot easier because you don't have to launch into the game. You don't have to you can just go to that channel and search quite easily as well.
Exactly.
So I think Discord works really well, and I think Discord also works well if you were just doing it via text. Now I know this is going back a bit, but obviously there used to be forums where you would just type. Do the adventure by typing and no audio at all. This is very easy to do with Discord as well. Exactly. So you could easily just type out stuff and, like you said, get bots to roll dice and stuff like that. So if people aren't comfortable with being on screen, like I've done lots of audio stuff where it's just been me on the video, which is totally fine because I'm very vain. But
you can just stare at
I could just stare at myself and just be like, no. But I do think it's, if people are just like really struggling with because they don't like the sound of their own voice or anything like that, then try the text one out. We've done it. There's a RPG called Alice is Missing, which is all done silently over what would have been WhatsApp or a text. They've got it now for Discord, and it's so much fun to play because you just sit in silence for an hour and a half messaging people randomly, and it gets very, very intense and stuff like that. So again, if you want to try something like that, that's not necessarily D&D related. Alice is Missing. This Discord server has ghosts in it. All that sort of thing. It's
Well, there's also loads of play by post Discord servers as well. I've been a part of Tales of the Tavern RPG, which is like a very big play by post sort of like community. There's there's a few of them. Like that's the only one Tavern Tales I think is the one I remember. But there's also like you just Google them, there are a lot of them. The thing I was going that's good with Discord. The other thing I was going to say about like sharing music is watch together. I didn't mention this. I forgot to mention this to Fiona, but it's a system. It's basically you go on there, watch together, and you can basically set up a room, and it will share the same video on Vimeo, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. So you can use all of those things, and you just share the link, and whatever you press play on in YouTube, it will play that to whoever's on their browser.
Oh, useful!
Really good. I use that for games when we do Dragon's Duel, I put post effects on for music, or if we're doing it live, the music's going live out, but then the others can't hear that music because I'm the only one who can hear it. So I will set up a watch together where I've put in like a playlist of songs. I kind of know ones I can go to. Good shout outs for Gloria Templum if you want some epic music. Like they've got ones called Demons and Villains and Heroes and Gods and stuff like that, and they're all great epic ones. If you want some 80s cyberpunk music, I recommend White Bat Audio. They've got loads. They're all and White Bat Audio is all just you could royalty free. You just need to say their name. So I use a couple of their tracks on Dragon's Duel because I just by mentioning that White Bat Audio in all our tech stuff is in there. And but yeah, watch together is great. And it's also great if you want to watch a YouTube video or a Vimeo video together.
I was going to say, I 100% want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's it goes on to an interesting point, because we just mentioned music briefly there. So when you're... Hamilton, your opinion, if you're starting out as just a DM, not streaming any of your games, not recording of them as experts that we are, what would you say if a DM wanted to use music in their game, or wasn't sure whether they should or not?
Well, I think that's a good starting point, I'd say. I think music is a great atmospheric thing. I think it helps a lot. I think it's a really easily high quality thing you can give to people that is available on the internet very readily. I'm someone, when I play games at home, who's very much like, and what I'm going to be doing for Dragon's Duel as well, is I use images and music, less maps. I'm not really a maps and Roll20 person. It's only Albert Rodeo that's actually got me into it. But I would be like, I'll find some really epic art. I'll spend time finding art that fits like scenes that I think work for what I'm like. 'Cause there's so much great artists out there, you know. And if I could afford to have them do it for Dragon's Duel, I would. But for now, it's just behind the scenes. But yeah, I think that and music is really good. And I think using this system, finding good YouTube tracks, there's hour-long, 4-hour-long, 10-hour-long versions of all the Skyrim music or all the Witcher music or all that sort of stuff that can sort of get you in that mindset of an RPG, give you that fantasy, or Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, whatever you want. And you can, I remember when I did an epic dragon battle with one of my home games, and I found a 1-hour mix of Fate of the Duel of the Fates, and I just played.
Very cool.
So they were just like creeping along, and then I just started going, and then I'm just gonna change the music, and it was like, da 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 da, and they were like, okay, right, I'm ready, and it was just epic because it was like the music just brings so much to it. So I'd recommend this as a first base because it's free. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then if you want to start spending money, other people to find on YouTube, I said Gloria Templum are really good. That's Glorie, then Templum. Dark Fantasy Studios.
Yeah, I have a couple of them.
Which both of us have, and the music you hear in the background right now is Dark Fantasy Studio. We both bought them individually in a fanatical bundle, which was something I was going to mention to you there, which is like, if you do want stuff that you may want to put out there, you want some royalties for it, I don't know, you can buy them, but there's a lot, like Fanatical do big bundles for 100% royalty free music. I've got one up here I'm showing now. At the moment they've got a new one. It's not by Dark Fantasy Studio, but it's a load of things, and you can get music there if you want to find some that you want for yourself, and you want to feel comfortable if you ever did record it, but even if you're just looking for some inspiration. But I think and then the one you mentioned was Sirenscape, so I've brought that up. Sirenscape. You can talk about that probably.
Yeah, absolutely. So from my point of view, I've always loved, again, very similar to Hamilton, I've always loved doing music in games and stuff like that for a player. As a DM, it's a ball ache. And just because it's, again, certainly when we're doing stuff online, it is like you are DM, but also tech person, but also composer, but also goblin
director, editor,
therapist.
Producer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So my thing would be, before I go on to Sirenscape, is that we talked about it briefly. It was like, if you are able to and you want music in the game, maybe dedicate a player to be in charge of the music. We talked about High Rollers, and that Chris Trott, one of the players, is now in control, in quotation marks, but is managing the music and creating their own stuff for it. Actually, it's really, really cool. I love that sort of thing, because again, it gives that agency to the players, saying, okay, so I'm describing the scene, what do you think? As long as you have that conversation with the player, but okay, let's see how we go, and maybe test it out a little bit. And like Hamilton said, look up stuff like YouTube Studios, where I get all my free music for one of my rolling podcasts and stuff like that. Again, as long as you credit them, if you're recording and you're distributing it, it's always nice to credit, because usually I always have someone goes, where did you get that music from? And I go, I can't remember. So I always link it back in my description so I know it. But Sirenscape is very interesting. So this is one that definitely is you see a lot on D&D Beyond, and certainly on most of the big D&D streams, where it is basically like a soundboard, and you can download certain sound sets that are coming up with new ones all the time, which is great. And I think for about $10 a month, it might have gone up since I had a look at it.
If you want to buy just the D&D setting, it's $7.15. So what's that, £5?
That's not bad at all. But if you wanted like a monthly subscription, so you get access to the latest ones or anything like that, can do it too. And you can download it to a desktop application, or as I did, onto my iPad, and then you can test it out. And it basically is all these different buttons and sliders and stuff. And so it's always like a evolving soundscape, which is so fucking cool. I've got to be honest. And you see this with immersive events and stuff. You see people just messing around with that. If you dedicate that to a player whilst you're doing a big combat fight, like you said, having the Fate of the Duels music going on, that I think anything like that is very immersive. Again, online, you might have tech difficulties, so you have to just practice and have that time at the beginning to set up and have a go. Because there's nothing worse. We've all been there where someone's playing lots of music really loudly, and it's certainly with, like, for me, I always wear headphones, but some people don't. So it's like, I can't hear it, it's too loud, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
So if you want music, go for it. And like you said, I love putting video game music in. Like, if you're doing sci-fi, you know, you got the Halo suite. You know, like Star Wars is always really good for that stuff. But yeah, anything like that. Game of Thrones.
Cyberpunk is like getting any of the Blade Runner. There's loads of ambient Blade Runner stuff out there.
Blade Runner is great. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
good for anything like that. But there's so
Dune
many
as well
Dune,
coming out. Anyway,
so I mean, just type Hans Zimmer in, and I'm sure you'll be fine.
Hans Zimmer is usually your
John
go-to.
Williams, and you'll probably do okay. But or Vangelis, which is the guy who did Blade Runner, original Blade Runner, not the new one.
Yes.
So,
so any video game, anything that you think, I really enjoyed this, have a listen to it. It'll be on Spotify. That's the thing. I think sometimes I go, I don't know what any video games. Type them in and stuff.
Yeah.
Even I will say I've used Stardew Valley music.
Oh, really?
For because that's quite cute and like, maybe a bit 8-bit pixel. Sorry.
Yeah.
But go for it. So yeah, have a look. I think if you want my top tips, if you want to use music, again, not many DMs do. If you're doing it online, check the tech works, obviously. Have a playlist like Hamilton was saying, and use a watch together so that people can listen to it as well. But also, like, feel free to experiment and give yourself time to experiment. Don't do it on the fly. You're doing all this prep for the encounter anyway.
Yes.
Give yourself 10 minutes just to check that's what you've got in as well. And also, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Exactly.
You can just say, like, oh, well, you can have the playlist for later. Like, I definitely, for when I did my Curse of Strahd campaign, actually, I put in together a playlist of what I was listening to whilst writing the prep and then put it out to the players. Just to be like,
I mean, Curse of Strahd, though, you
on.
could just move outside of the fantasy realm and just go into your goth music, can't you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Come on, there was definitely some Cure going on in there.
There was definitely some What We Do in the Shadows music for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. But I do think, because I guess the question has always been like, as a new DM, should you bother with music and stuff? And certainly if you're in person, I definitely think there is worth looking at it.
In person, actually, when I first came back to it again, my DM said he was a game designer. He'd set up a script very similar to, I think, what they did on Critical Role, which he had like a set. He'd make, because he's a game developer, he knows how to make this. I've made like a script on his phone that he could press a button and it would, like a bit like the Sirenscape, and just play some tracks. And he played them for all our boss battles, and we knew the track when he played the sounding one at the beginning. We're like, oh fuck. Oh, we're not prepared for this. Oh dear.
But and you know what, there's actually some joy in that as well. You see it on Critical Role as well, where there's like that certain music where it's like
the trumpet.
Yeah. Yeah, and they all get into it because they know it's silly. It is quite nice. So, but I think in person, and I've played in person like horror games and stuff like that, where you put the lights down and that music and all that sort of thing. Worth a go if it's accessible to you and you are starting to go back in person, because hopefully, next couple of months we will be. Definitely, I think music is an important part, but it might not be the most important part. And I think it's just emphasizing across that. Don't worry about that. Worry about the world and the players first.
Yes.
Then add to it for sure.
No, exactly. That's right. And I think that is that's the process you should go by, if you know what I mean. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Is there any other things that you think, Hamilton, like optional extras?
Good resource. I mean, if you want maps, I bought this amazing set, and I don't want to talk about it because I think it's incredible, and I think they're really good, and they were really nice. Like, I messaged them saying, "Oh, I really liked it," and they came back to me and said, "Oh, I'm glad to." They just seem really nice people. So I'm just going to say that they are really good. $80 for 940 battle maps. And if it's your first purchase, you get 15 or 20 or 30% off. I can't remember what it is.
That's pretty good.
15% off. So that's 50 quid. It basically becomes 50 quid at the end of it. But 940 maps, it's actually pretty incredible. I'm going to quickly show them. I'm sure they don't mind me showing them off. They're on there. Seafoot Games, they're called. And you get a free map every month. You could join their Patreon and get them as well. But
pretty good.
Like, they're pretty good quality. I don't know.
Yeah. Go.
I'm just going through a few of them now. They're like, they're big maps as well. It's a mixture of big maps. There's like whole city, town. There's a big spider one. Oh no! There's like cloud city ones. There's infernal ones. They got some portal ones, and it's all. I mean, it was, how many gig was it? I think it was 94 gigs worth. It was like ridiculous. Like 58 gigs worth of maps.
Amazing.
Because they all come like the standard 300 DPI with or without a grid, plus a 72 DPI one. So you're like getting a lot of and they've got some really funky stuff in there. So there is some repetition. Like there's an infernal version and a desert version of the same ones, but it's not. It's like out of 940 having a few of them that overlap. I wasn't that upset about, but
and you know what? I was just going to add on to that. I think if you ever use someone that's like you said, like you've used a map of theirs or a homebrew something from the DM's Guild, message them and say I used it, because there's nothing more joyous than
100%.
for someone to be like, someone used my stuff, especially when we're all in. It feels like we are drowning in all these resources, but actually messaging someone, because they are a person as well. So I think that's absolutely lovely that you message them and say I've used these maps and stuff, because they'll be really joyous.
Well, I wanted to let them know that I thought it was I think it's incredible. Like they did a quarantine bundle, which is actually the smallest one, which is all their small maps, which I think is only I'll just check that now. I think it's $39, which is 520 maps. They're all small maps, like encounter maps, but they did it in the quarantine. They started it, and I clearly think they did really well. And I thought it was like, what a nice thing to do. So they seemed like nice people. So I thought, and and they were. So I recommend checking them out. But there's lots, and then there are loads of great map makers out there that you can get Patreons of. Maps and Quests. There's I'm trying to think of. I can't forget everyone's names now. And I'm like, so there's but you can go on there. You can find loads of them and join Patreons and get loads of good maps, or just buy bundles. But really good. So.
And actually, no, but that's a good point. Like, again, if you ever watch a stream such as Dragon's Duel or High Roller Flare, they'll usually have in the episode description where they've got certain things from. So if you're like, I wonder where that music's from, or something like that. Whether they might be sponsored by them as well. That could be the thing. But always check the description.
Yes.
Because usually that's where things are. So and also reach out, ask, say, where did you get this from? And usually they might not respond. Somebody else will be like, it's this, because somebody else has asked it similar. So always feel empowered to ask. I think that's the main thing I've learned, is like, because it does. We've mentioned this before. Sometimes as a new DM, it is overwhelming how much stuff is like. Where do you start? Do you need any of this? And the answer is, why don't you ask? Because then people will give you their recommendations, and you can take it as and when.
But I think when we go back to a point then, and there as well, again, is like, it can be really expensive, all of this stuff. You can go really far. And I think something particular, as I said, we were talking about maps and stuff, and like artwork and things, they can get quite expensive. So I think it's be select about it, try and do what you can to afford, always be careful about, like, manage your own hobby. You can manage your own hobby, but I think also, I think I'm still of the mind, it's up to you personally how you want to run your game. That's it as well, because like you might want to go for a tactical, heavy map-based game. So put your time and money into that, or put your time, effort, or start trying to make them. Incarnate, as I said before, or Wonder Draft or other places, or Dungeon Fog. There's millions of them out there that you can make your own stuff on there. But yes, I think all I'm saying is that I bought that map pack because I ain't got time to. I've made some maps of Dragon's Duel, but I made them when it's particular. Otherwise, it's Theatre of the Mind, because that's how I want to play, sort of thing. But when I did ship combat, I want a ship because I want to see the ship and the sea and everyone have a jaunty time. But when it's like, when you're just like in a full campaign, you're going to have encounters here, there, and everywhere. I go like, how do you get maps for? How do people sometimes have maps for all these things? Because it's like, I think I've got a game later tonight, and there's about 50 different areas they could all end up in. I'm like, I ain't got a map for all that, so it's going to have to be Theatre.
You don't have maps. You don't. If you were in person, you probably don't have all the minis or anything like that. So sketching
with a piece of paper can also actually do a lot, or sharing your screen on Discord
and drawing it
on Photoshop is something I've done a lot, and just be like, so it's like this, like this is what I think it could be, and I sometimes do little sketches of like, this would be the space that it's going to be in. I know I'm not going to share one now. I won't do that because I'll just look like I'm showing off. But
and I think as well, like, again, if some people, I guess people are like, but what about minis? If you've got maps, what about minis? But I'll say as well, like, you can get 2D printed like paper, and you can put into stands. You could even just have counters or anything like that, and write big bad evil person on the counter and stuff like that. So I guess because I love getting minis, and one thing I'd love about minis is like being able to paint them. I say that with loads of unpainted ones back at my house, but I always think minis, if you want to really invest in them, make it as a group thing. So like we used to have little mini painting parties with me, and so if we couldn't do D&D for whatever reason, someone was sick or away, right, we'll just spend the evening just painting minis all together, and it could be your mini, it could be a mini that you use later. We've had that a few times where it just gets pulled out and you're like, no, I painted that 3 months ago. You're like, yes, and now it's here to fight you. And you're like,
I've got some in-person tips and tricks then for this.
Go for it.
So one of them, you talk about the maps, also buying like big square gridded paper maps. You can get those. They're really good that you can then get non-permanent markers and draw onto. As and when they're great, they're invaluable. As you said, getting the little mini stands. I got Gloomhaven. If everyone's played that game, you get the little plastic little like it just looks like it's got a flat base and then 2 uprights, and that comes with loads of like the main characters are proper minis, and then the other ones are just 2D prints. If you print them on high quality card, you get that. The other one is initiative trackers. I'm going to steal from my DM, my first DM. Right, now how to initiative track. If you've got a GM screen, make some little tags, upright tags, with the names of all your players on them, which can then clip onto, which have like a downstand bit. He made this. And then you can just move them around on the board, and it shows you their name their side, their name your side, so you can both see who it is. They tell you the role, and you just move them into position. Then you have a couple spare for monsters that you can write in non-permanent marker. The monster's turn, and that is just such an easy visual of like encounter tracker. And I was like, oh yeah, when he turned up with that, I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? I was like,
this guy's lost people's turns, so and I felt the wrath of it. So anything like that visually, and even having another player be in control of it, saying, okay, who's everyone's initiative, and then put stuff here, and then I mean, like maybe there's that sort of thing going, oh, but I don't want them all to know what the monster's coming. That's fine. Just do it on a turn basis, and be like, okay, top of the round, someone else appears, and then put that in between
where they
people.
go exactly. But at least it's like a visual thing. Once it's in, you at least know who's next, which is good in person. And like it's actually quite difficult. And I'm thinking there's not actually a good way online for initiative, making that very much aware. I'd really love if there was something where it like gave people a little like warning on their screen, like you're next, you're next, you're next, you're next, or something like that. You get prepped.
I love that. Yeah, but I know they have the encounter builder, which you can put people's initiatives stuff into it. But I love that idea to indicate to the players, "You're next. What are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
As we're doing it, I love that. I think that's amazing.
Exactly. I like Matt's trick of being like, we go. Like, next up is Laura. Taliesin, you're on deck. You're on deck, exactly. Which I think is such a good term, and it's something I try and use a lot. Like saying, all right, next up it's you, and you're on deck. So they're readying what they've got, and that actually does work quite well for those sorts of things. And I'm not saying this again from a stream point of view. This is just because in game it can just people go, I'm not sure. And you're just like, come on.
I think you missed my turn. I can't remember.
Yeah, exactly. So
absolutely. And I think the final thing, I know we've thrown a lot at people as just a general sort of thing, which is maybe not helpful, but I always think it's helpful just to chat these things. One thing I love as a DM, if I was starting out, is encouraging players in person but also online to bring snacks. Because like it's also fun. It's a community thing as well. Whether like we talked about before about both our games, we used to have them after work, so we'd go have a quick dinner beforehand or bring snacks and have drinks, whatever. And you kind of lose it a little bit, that community feeling, once you're online. But I think making sure that you have a bio break and make sure is everyone eating, has everyone got stuff. It's just quite a nice thing to do, and especially make sure you have a plate for the DM who's going to be doing lots of talking.
Yes,
and everyone else is going to be stuffing their face, and there's nothing left for them. So.
No, you should. Look after your DM, because they're doing so much and managing so much that Can I tell you a nice little story about snacks and online? And I'm going to take this from Kyle, who DMs our Darkest Timeline. So on the show, he did a We the Time watch together thing for when Wheel of Time was on, and what he made was he came up with a recipe for simple things that everyone could make, that everyone could have at the same time when watching it. And I thought it was a really nice idea for, like, he's doing it for some games as well. Like, all right, and it was really simple. Like, it was like a guacamole, but he made it like a little bit different with some like courgette or something. I can't remember what it was that was additional.
That's
like,
really cool.
Yeah, and like made cocktails as well was another one. So doing like a themed cocktail for the night. And I know like the in my Curse of Strahd game, we did like, we wouldn't all buy the same beers, but we'd all be very much saying like, what beers have we got tonight, or what drinks are we drinking tonight? So everyone was like aware. So like, because I don't always drink beer, so there was a couple of times when more hard alcohol was required to play Curse of Strahd, so I was on the rum. I mean, there's a couple of games online, you would have seen me go, right, I'm bringing the rum out now because that's when it needed, because it's the only way I'm going to survive this. But yeah, so I think doing those sorts of things and just engaging like before the game, we'd be like, oh, I've bought some like Dorset beers for tonight, and it just makes it feel a bit more like you're together. If you're not,
I love the idea of a D&D supper club. I've done that for an improv thing, where we all bake stuff together or something quick together and then sit down and eat it. I mean, it's stressful if you're like me and I can't get my timings right at all. We had we had like a I don't know if it's a UK only thing, but Hamilton will know what I mean. There's like the party hedgehog where you have like a covered fruit, and then you have skewers on it with cheese and and onions also. So we had to make one of those, and I was panicking because it wasn't big enough, so it was very small, my one. But stuff like that, like you said, snacks or just having that group.
Cocktails are a little less like stressful because it's just like you pretty much need tonic water and gin is the simplest way of doing it. But it's just like buy a couple of mixers, buy some lemons and make it.
Yeah, I love the idea of like a dip. And some like I love the idea of that guacamole. That actually sounds really delicious. Yeah, so, exactly. But yeah, I did I think as a DM thinking about that a little bit. Like it does seem like there's loads of things to think about, but this is just like an optional extra. Like I loved eating together with my team before we started and having, like you said, a little drink and then helping the DM, making sure that they're
giving jobs to your players. Get like in our game, we had a guy who was really into minis, so they were just like always they were the one buying. They just bought us all minis. Like that's what they did, and they painted them because they enjoyed it. Like they kept the minis afterwards. Like which fine.
Of course,
it's whatever. It's not the point. It was just like the point was they wanted the minis. They wanted to get involved in that. So that's what they did. And then someone else was like, we had someone in the group who was vegan, who was really into their food and making their own stuff. So they were like bringing us vegan cheese and bringing us like vegan stuff they were making, which was really cool. So they were bringing all the snacks, and then like we'd buy the beer. Like I'd buy the beer because they'd be like at work before. So it was like everyone had a little job to do before you got to the table, sort of thing, in terms of preparing.
I think that's great. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I wish I was in your D&D group. That sounds like amazing.
It was good fun. It's good fun. I really miss them. I miss you if you're out there. So, yeah. Well, when Pando's over, maybe.
Fingers crossed. But it seems, touch wood, things are hopefully improving. So who knows what will be in 6 months, end of the year time. So, fingers crossed.
There we are.
Well, there you are. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Hamilton, for a really interesting topic, because I think it's one that it is overwhelming at points, but I think we've touched on bits of everything.
I think it was just I think like how to start running DD maybe is not the right term. Maybe we could put that in brackets before. Here's some tips and tricks that we've learned are from running D&D that you might find useful, because it's just like there's so many of these things that I've not found. People might know all of these, every single one, but like resources out there are so many, and it's hard to trawl through all of them. That just having, I think, hopefully, just giving you a few little brief tidbits on here's different ways you can play maps. Here's different alternate options to Roll20, for example, or just getting a load of maps than getting an Incarnate subscription or something like that. Whatever. Yeah. It's just hopefully that's what it's done. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. Well, Hamilton.
Yes.
What's going on with Dragon's Duel?
What's going on?
I hear there's loads of stuff happening with the Shattered Realms and the darkest timelines. What's going on?
What's going on? Well, what are we? This will be next.
Yeah, good question.
This will be next.
What timeline are we in?
Next week. So, the Saturday that you have just passed, would have been the first episode of like season 3's like actual plays. So there was only one episode that week of actual plays, which was the first of the Shattered Realms. It was called Portal Problems. So it was a bit of a fun one. You know, we had a guest DM in Dick Dynamite from the Backwater Bastards DM part of it. I did in the beginning. What happened is like our players would give these backstories. Epic battle with Caraptis, the big bad evil person, was just like he was fighting on the battle. They both cast they were running out of spells. He had no legendary resistance left, so they cast a wish spell, which we found out in our backstories was given to one of our players by Asmodeus. In exchange for some dodgy dealings. So, why did Asmodeus want him to play this card? Well, when he played that wish spell, Caraptis countered with his own wish spell because he had no counter spells left. and it broke the universe, because there was like one wish was that you never existed, the other one was I rule the universe. So it split the universe, everyone went crazy. One half got saved, one third of their existences got trashed into a portal and died. Like, which was Carl, that was Brian's fault. Brian, the Dabu. We had 3 Dabus that were trying to fix them all back together, and Brian made a mistake, and one third of them just went, and they were disintegrated. One third ended up in another place that someone was happy for them to end up with, and we don't know why, but we assume someone's okay with that. And then the other third ended up getting chucked through like an astral tunnel. They were trying to like get them into an astral tunnel. They got them together. The astral tunnel started to break apart. They ended up in astral space. Like, it started like looking like a hose pipe in a, when you let a hose pipe go, like this. They got shot out into a beholder disco.
Excellent.
There you go, as you do. And that's when Dick Dynamite did all his sci-fi best, and we had some nerdy beholders trying to get dates for the prom, and so
adorable.
It was so much fun. I'm so in awe of these DMs out there, like just the ideas and the characterization of that Dick did for these like nerdy beholders was just amazing. It was so good. So I recommend people listen/watch that. And then they survived that, and they ended up in the Abyss. So, it's all good. It's all good.
It's all good. The Abyss. I mean, we've had to do some reading for the Abyss for another project happening, and I'm like, it's not a great place to be.
No, I like, because we've got, so the other group, the other ones that I said that disappeared off, they'll be in our Darkest Time one, which will be on Friday night. So tomorrow night, 10 p.m. UK time, you'll see what happened to the other half that didn't go to the Beholder Disco. I don't think they're having a good time, because it's the Darkest Time. I keep hearing the chats, and it's just like, I'm nearly dead, like all the time. Like every end, like we've done a couple of pre-records, and it's like, okay, so this week it's me who's nearly dying. But I love how my crew are like, oh yeah, we're in the happy place, right? And I was like, yeah, we're in the Abyss. And they're like, yeah, the Abyss. The Abyss? Like, the Gru meme. Like, oh, we're not in the Darkest Timeline. Oh, we're going on a Beholder Disco. Oh, now we're in the Abyss. We're in the Abyss. Sort of thing. So
amazing.
So they're going to have some fun with that on Saturday night, which I'm recording tonight. So all I can say is that they're in the Abyss, and we're trying to make their way to Sigil. That's all that they're trying to do. So yeah.
Exciting, yes. Oh God, yeah. I was just like, all I can think of is how horrible the Abyss is. So
yes,
good luck.
Exactly.
Good luck. Team.
I had to send them a message saying, "How are your insect phobias?" I'll leave it at that.
Whoa.
So well, just spoiler warnings for anyone who has insect phobias. There's no cockroaches, but there is lots of flies and things. So yeah.
Horrible, but also amazing.
Yeah, hopefully. How about you?
What am I up to? I don't know. My name is
Fiona. Who am I? Where am I?
Where am I? Yeah, as I was saying to Hamilton off stream, January's been a very interesting time for me, because I've still not gone back to work properly, and I'm still at my parents because COVID is a thing, unfortunately. But ultimately, it's all going well. I run the What Am I Rolling podcast, which is a twice-monthly RPG one-shot podcast. As always, it's going very well, I assume. There'll be some new episodes up, obviously, by the time this is out, because I'll have got down to actually knuckling down to editing them. But we've got other things coming out. Like I just bought, you know this, Hamilton, I just bought the Dark Crystal RPG game, which I cannot wait to play. So because I really love the River Horse Games Labyrinth one, so that'll be really fun. I've got Mars Colony 39 Dark should be out soon. All these other things should be out soon. And I'm recording more. It's really weird because I have them all in my head, but just nothing's happening now, so I don't know what they are. So
exactly.
It's all going very well.
Yeah.
And I think by the time this comes out, we'll have done quite a lot of the shows. But yes, Galactic Implosions is now streaming to a YouTube near you. By this time, I probably won't be on the stream because I'll be probably at the show. But we'll have 5 episodes that are coming out. There's one going to be out tonight, probably at the same time. Oh no, it was just finished. Never mind. There's one out on the Saturday coming up, so I will send the link to that if people are interested and fancy some sci-fi comedy improv. But obviously, watch Dragon Duel stuff first because that's important.
It's fine. But also, this might actually be on YouTube instead of Twitch.
That's a very good point. Yes, so actually it was a joint thing. So we've decided for DM's book going forward, we're actually going to be premiering all of our episodes hopefully from this one onto I was going to say onto Twitch, no, onto YouTube. Just a sort of an admin thing, really, just going forward, because this means that they're here forever. We get some more chat, and people can actually comment onto the videos continuously.
Exactly. And it just feels like we're more providing an infotainment service, so it's something that we think is like out there, so people can find it more readily on YouTube, because that's more where you'd go and search for information about D&D. And as we said, there's another couple of other ideas we've got in the bag, which are about giving more infotainment out there to you. Infotainment, I hate that word sometimes, but it is in trying to give you some more information and background and lore and knowledge about D&D that we want to share and we want to enjoy reading about. And it's sort of, so that's the sort of stuff, and more to be said about that later.
Oh, exciting. No, it's very exciting stuff. But of course, the episodes will still be available on the DM's Book Club podcast channel, so you don't need to worry about that if you're still subscribed to that. But yes, and we'll always have updates in the Dragon's Duel Discord for now. And just if you fancy that, come join us. It's fun. We talk about meal deals, I talk about games I've bought, and we just general sort of chats in general.
Exactly.
It's good fun. It's good fun.
100%. Yeah, I know. I didn't have meal deal because I was at home today, so I had leftovers, which is, I think, actually the best option. But there you go. I won't bother people at home with that. I will cut that out. So anyway, have a great rest of your week, everyone at home, and yourself, Fiona, and
you, Hamilton.
And we'll see you next week on the
flip side.
All right, see you next.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.